You are already on the path of awakening. It's time to transition from a life of struggle to a life of play. It's time to discover your autonomy, agency, sovereignty, and potency. Welcome to Reveal the Game of Life.
Welcome back to Reveal the Game of Life, the show where no topic is off topic, including the macro topics like the big pivot or the energetic pivot of the universe, which is currently happening. Before I get into that, I'm one of your hosts, Chris Tomaso, and I'm here with your other host,
Molly Mandelberg.
Ba, 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 ba. And this might be up for you right now if you are feeling a hollowness with your current life, maybe a examination of the stories about what means a good life that may no longer be serving you. Maybe you start to scroll through social media like I have, and people keep talking about like financial freedom and escaping the rat race, and that all sounds good, but do you have to do it this way? What does it even mean to live a good life? If you've been thinking about these things, you're not alone. That's because right now there is a big energetic shift happening where the old structures are actually falling away. But before the new structures can emerge, there is this time of uncertainty. Who am I? What am I doing with my life? How will I make money? What is it even, if you're like me and you get far down the rabbit hole, what does it even mean to make money and live in a society? And how do we live in a world with more kindness? And how can we do that when I can't even see 6 months ahead or 2 months ahead or what's going to happen next week? This is partially coming from my own starting to kind of question all of the assumptions about what my path is. And so this is a very deep introspective time potentially. And yet, how do we keep living? How do we keep moving forward? Because we have to pay our taxes. We have to, put food on the table. We have to, quote, make something of our lives. What does that even mean in a world where everything is so uncertain? So that's a big, big topic to bring up. And the goal with this is to give some clarity and some peace to what is happening. I'm curious, Molly, what has this been going on for you, or have you noticed it in others?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that anyone listening to this podcast is probably already in the family of acknowledging a paradigm shift, and that we've been coming upon the age of Aquarius for so long, and now we're like getting into it. And yeah, it is strange to be on a trajectory in your life and then notice that that entire trajectory doesn't feel right anymore, or maybe it feels heavy, or maybe you just start to feel like that something's missing or something needs to come in or something's about to change. And it can be terrifying to think, I've got this figured out, and what do you mean suddenly I'm desiring a different path, or suddenly I want to let this all go? It's even more scary if you've reached some level of what you think is success, like having the, American dream that you thought you wanted, or having the, corporate career that pays out well. To question that is even more scary sometimes than being in that experimental phase of like, I don't know yet, I'm finding it. To go and say, I don't know, and I'm finding it, when you've kind of already established yourself on a certain path, is really uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And also the theory that I want to make sure to bring to the table today is, what if it is indeed greater than we could have ever possibly imagined on the other side of whatever this quote unquote shift is? And what if our willingness to ride that wave and explore it and get curious with ourselves and tap into our core values and our deepest desires, even if it means that everything in your life is about to change, what if that's worth it? What if it ends up being so more worth it than you could have ever imagined? So that's kind of where I'm hanging out with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the advantage of having done this kind of inner spiritual work before. This is it becomes tools that you can rely on when no other tool makes sense, right? We're used to thinking of tools like saving up enough money or get going to school and getting the right job, like these kinds of structures we put in place in our lives so that we can have a sense of certainty about being safe and being okay and that we will live the kind of life that we want. And those are kind of falling away. I just want to point out, like, a bunch of tech companies had layoffs. There's fears of recession. Like, there's so much uncertainty. We're in this kind of post COVID world, sort post quote unquote, where it's like, what do we want to go back to the way things were? Can we even go back to the way things were? So there's all these like macro anxieties that are happening, and there's no obvious narrative to jump onto to say, well, this is the path. And so that means that it creates this space. So I work as a integration guide for the Royal Shaman, which is an incredible community. And one of the things they talk about is the void. It's this feeling, it's basically this in between liminal space where all the old, like who you thought you were, falls away in order to become the person that you want to be. But you can't get ahead of it, because so what I wanted to say is that what this looks like when you're letting go of the things that no longer serve you is, oh, I'll just create a new plan. Okay, well, Instagram's not working, then I'll get on TikTok. Which is not to say neither of those things will work, but you create a new plan that looks a lot like your old plan, or it has a lot of the energetic underpinnings, and then the universe goes, nope, you step like 2 steps along the plan, and then it's like, oh wait, this isn't going to work, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, because there's a part of you that's like, I need to be safe, I need to plan, and I need to have a sense of what my future will be. And as those things fall away, that no longer is a tool that has the highest leverage. The tool, in my opinion, I'll ask you in a second, Molly, but one of them is surrendering to what is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things is also a willingness to take that one step forward, because I know a lot of people will get frozen in, I'll just stay where I'm at because it's comfortable, or I'll just wait till I'm clear to move forward. And it's like, okay, but sometimes you don't know what the hell the path is going to be until you take that one step, that one leap sometimes in a new
Yeah.
direction. And then it starts to materialize before you. And again, in opportunities and open doorways and new possibilities that you, from that previous state before that leap or before that one step forward, couldn't have access to, didn't have the awareness, didn't have the information, the data in front of you of what to choose next clearly enough until you took that one step. And so that is like, takes bravery. It takes courage to start moving and start saying, I don't know what's next, but I know it's not quite this. And so I'm willing to start exploring and getting curious and asking questions or moving forward and trying things out until I start shifting from that, chrysalis phase to starting to notice I have wings again, or wings now in a way I didn't before. Yeah. And I just want to say there's two things. Like, one, we were just talking about the astrology of Pluto and Capricorn changing signs or something for the first time in like a decade or 15 years for Pluto. Like, there's astrological information to back up this kind of huge energetic shift. There's scientific evidence. I don't have exact information. It might not be accurate. I don't know. But that the axis of the Earth has even shifted. So it's like the magnetics of the poles and how our bodies are magnetic beings. We have a magnetic field around us that are impacted by the planet that we're on. If that shifts a few degrees, of course it's going to impact us. It's going to impact weather. It's going to impact everything. So it's not just like consciousness is rising and we're all waking up. It's like also there's like things about this physical reality that are saying, hey, it's all a little bit different now. And so what's cool about that is it's all a little bit different now means that the track that you were on, or that you've been on, or that you think you're on, might not be the track anymore. You might actually have already jumped to a different track, and it isn't going where your old track was ever going. And now you get to be in question about what does this track have to teach me? What does this track even look like? How do I move down this track? And what do I hope is on the other end of this track? And oftentimes it's easier to have targets that are energetic because the physical manifestation of how that state of being is going to come about is never going to look like what you're asking for. So how do you want to feel on this track?
Hmm.
What is riding that wave of change and discomfort optimally look like for you?
Right. And I
Yeah.
think a really good tool. So I wanted to say that if you've been in this process, like I have been in this process, it's very real to me that there's this sense of mourning. Like it's like you're talking about a track, but it's like a whole life that was built that may feel like you're grieving the loss of it. And let yourself grieve that loss. Like it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling, whatever's being brought up. This it could be a monumental thing for you. I have the privilege of being around lots of spiritual, powerful people who are also feeling loss at all levels of success. And when you are ready to take those steps forward, the key is, and we talked about this in the first episode of the season, is alignment. Is where is alignment in this moment? Because that's going to lead you to the path forward. The scary thing is that, and this is a story that came up for me that I was working through is, well, how can I be sure that the path is going to lead me to the destination before I take the first step? You can't. That's a story that you get to let go of. Like the destination, like you said, the energetic destination is fixed or will happen, but you don't get to decide the path. The path just appears in front of you every day. And there's this kind of discipline. And I think one of the things that this shift is bringing is it's bringing us to more presence. Because in a world where things are fixed, and you can look at like, I'll be in this job for this much time, and then I'll retire, and then this is going to look like this, right? You can have this sort of linear understanding of what your path is going to be. But in a world that's changing this much, that is no longer something you can rely on as a tool, that you have to be present. Presence is the only way that you will stay in alignment. And it only ever was, but it was easy before to think that your conception of what would happen in the future was correct because you had enough data to support it.
Hmm.
Now we're having more and more data that doesn't support it, and more data that supports that uncertainty is the kind of nature of the universe, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. And I'm like you said, that has always been true. And now it's just a little bit harder to latch onto or believe in that the path is going where you think it's going. And there's beauty in that. There's discovery. There's playfulness that can be had in that. Oh, I think it's this. Oh no, wait, like, ooh, this feels lighter now. I'll go in this direction. Not to like encourage the shiny object syndrome or like the ADD of your reality, but um that's kind of the state of affairs right now. And if you think about, you fall in love and you go get married and you think, okay, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. You think that, but you really don't ever know. Or you buy a house and you think this is the house we're going to live in forever. And then, oops, you had two kids and now that house just ain't big enough. And so that has to change. Like the path is always showing up and pivoting before us. And now it's just like you said, more obvious that it's going to keep pivoting and probably in ways you didn't plan for.
Right. And I want to just shout out to the people who've been on the spiritual path for a while, who've developed all these mental models of what it means to create reality or co-create with reality. Those stories are also up for discussion and investigation. And so it can be easy to fall into, oh, I know what this is going to be. Oh, this is a pivot and I know where this is going to go. And at least for me, reality has constantly said like, oh, huh? Well, then this is happening. And so it's this, I call it a discipline. And I've mentioned this multiple times. I think it bears repeating. Like reality is just as important as what's in your mind. Like it's like you're co-creating with a partner, you're in conversation, and listening to what reality is telling you is just as important as having intentions and wanting to create it and having a conception of what you want to create, and even like intuitions that you have about where your path is leading you, those all get to be co-created with what is showing up for you right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you and I were both discussing how we're having experiences about this right now, and it doesn't mean that that choice or that track was ever wrong. Like there's an enthusiasm for this project or this idea, and you start moving towards it and you dig into it, and then it could become the thing that you've been focusing on, and your energy could evolve and change to such a degree that now that project feels stale, or it feels heavy, or it feels lackluster. And so you start asking questions about you start looking at, okay, what is true? What do I most want to focus on? What do I really want to invest my energy and time into right now that would feel like alive for me? And you find that it's a completely different thing than you thought it was. That doesn't make the you that chose that last project wrong. It doesn't make that project wrong. It doesn't mean you have to follow through with that project because you started it and you told people about it and now the world is expecting it from you. And it's like, no, you following your truth, you finding that aliveness, you trusting that leap is always going to pay out bigger than I have to, or I said I would, or whatever is encouraging you to hold fast to a track that's actually not your like highest excitement anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I'm taking that in myself. Thank you for that.
Yeah, me too. I said that for me as much as for you. And whoever else is get out there too, it's for you.
Yeah. What's amazing, I want to kind of bring to the broader context. What's amazing being in a world where this is a big pivot that many people are experiencing at the same time. It means that whole new opportunities and structures will emerge because groups of people at the same time are saying things like, what do we really want work to be? Like should work be I'm an employee of a company and I get paid a salary and I get only weekends off and then I get a 401k and then I retire? Is that really what work should be? If enough people get together and say, no, I want work to be this other thing, then they can collaborate together. And so the fear is that a big fear I find with this kind of work is this is happening to me. I'm the only one who gets this, who's going through this. I'm going crazy. The rest of the world is sane, and I'm the one who's on this path. And so the good news is because we have this technology to disseminate this message and that people are, I'm seeing it all over the place. People are in community. They're talking, they're sharing their experiences, and they're being able to say, hey, what do we want to build together? What kind of structures would we want? What kind of world do we want to live in? It's actually an immense, just like the Chinese word for crisis is also, or character for crisis is also opportunity.
Mm.
It's like the crisis of all of our old ways of being, which happens internally first and then can't help but be magnified externally, is the opportunity to change everything possibly much faster than we think is even possible. Like if you wanted to do system-wide society change in the past, it's like, okay, I have to either make enough money that it's like a country's worth of GDP, or I have to like get somebody to be president who believes in my thoughts and have like a party that like resonates with my value. You're talking about like decades of work, right? If it even could happen at all. This is something that could happen within years. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying that the level of shifting internally means that that is now possible. Because one thing that, so my partner, she brought up like, wow, this amazing thing's happening on TikTok where people are like bartering. They're saying like, I have a thing and I want this thing, right? And that's like, they're basically just like end running around money, right? Money used to exist because like it was invented because it needed to be a intermediary medium for value. right? And then it became something more when it was like, oh, now I can make money on money, and I can get paid for money for storing money, and now I can have credit, and now I can leverage that credit and create the idea of money in the future that other people can buy into and use it to create empires. But the initial kernel of it was, I have a sheep and I want a pair of shoes, and I don't know how to make that trade if the sheep merchant doesn't want shoes, right? TikTok is just one technology where that is now possible. So what if money didn't exist, right? I'm talking about like major society level shifts that it may not change overnight, but now it gets to be investigated on a level that I don't think people could realistically believe in a collective way.
Yeah. That we're starting to believe in things that don't seem logical or possible more
Right.
often too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So, what about you? How's this shift been for you?
I mean, it's been probably some of the most so usually my own spiritual practice is like I kind of go with astrology. I go with the movement of the moons. I set intentions during the new moon, and then in the full moon, usually something I get activated, and then I process it, and then I become aware of stories that aren't serving me. That's been pretty fixed for probably a year now. And in recent times, it's basically been like, no, it's like every 2 or 3 days I get activated in a big way and then process it and then activate in a big way. The last time this happened, I was like, I don't know if I can do this for like years upon years, like every few days get activated. So I will just say that the rate of personal awareness is accelerating, and the rate at which I'm being activated and then emotional and then letting go, becoming aware of stories that don't serve me, letting them go is accelerating. And it's accelerating. It always happens for a reason, because the people that I guide, usually there's a message in there for them. Usually, like, even if I'm like, why did I go through this? Like, what's this about? I don't know. Okay, then I find a little bit of clarity, and then I share with them clarity, and then they go, wow, that pings for me because of this reason or that reason. So I would say that it's accelerating and it's becoming more of a collaborative experience. Those are the two big shifts that are happening for me in my life. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. The accelerating of being able to process something and move from this happened, oh shit, to thank God that happened, look at what it brought me, or look at what's possible now because that happened, or what I'm aware of or willing to be aware of now because of that. The time span between that state and that state is like so much shorter than it used to be. And I don't know if I would say I'm getting triggered every 2 days, but the things that are showing up to be like, oh, wow, I'm noticing my past self would have been taken out. I would have been taken out, but for days, I would have been distraught or grieving or upset or like angry or broken or whatever. And the curve, like, it's like I can't stop myself from being hit by it altogether. But the curve to like back to homeostasis is such a shortened trip. And that is a sign of something shifting in me, shifting in this reality, shifting in like the energetics of what's possible in my world, at least. And that's like very satisfying to acknowledge and to like claim and own that it doesn't have to be the same as it once was, and that we
Yeah.
are not the same as we once were. And that's both an evidence of the work that we're doing and have done, and also that I think consciousness is changing on this planet to a place where we have more access to awareness. And when we're willing to be present with that awareness, the thread and the through line and the purpose to the story comes a lot more easily, more readily than the drama of the story that we used to latch onto for longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm doing that.
absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll
Yeah.
say in my work with my clients, because I teach business from a really magical, energetic standpoint, that the story of let's set the thing up to make your business work, that's where I started coming at business marketing from, is so far gone from where we're doing business from now, that now me and my clients, the work I'm doing with my clients is so rooted in our own energy impacts every outcome in our business. And if we don't focus on that first, the other shit doesn't work as well. And so it's really all coming back to, how do we tune into what's that curve, and how do we practice raising our vibration and focusing on the energy to a state where all the business becomes miraculous and not effortless, but easier. And the things that are getting created from that place have traction in a way that they didn't used to have traction without that energetic component. And
Yeah.
so I feel really excited to be getting to have those conversations on a regular basis of like, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to create it? And who do we need to be or become to let that be possible?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
absolutely. And I just want to say, with what you're saying, it's it's about the inner work right now. Like, if you're like, that's the best piece of advice, quote unquote, that I can give, is like, focus on the inner work, because it's going to make everything else easier.
Yeah.
It's going to make any amount of chaos that happens in your external reality easier. It's going to make you have more clarity quicker. It's going to give you the ability to be more resilient to as things change. And it's going to give you like non-linear access to like what you want to create. You think you have all these steps. Like, I just had this experience where I like wrote out, I'm I was in the middle of creating this like journal product, right? Based on our journaling conversation. And I was like, okay, where can this go? Like, logical brain activate. What's the empire? So it's like, create the journal, and then the next step, and then the next step. And then so it's like 5 steps later is this type of consulting that I wanted to do. I was like, all right, by the time I get there, I'll have built up this like head of steam and social recognition and all the things I thought I would need in order to do something as quote crazy as this kind of consulting, which is essentially like, it's like team and leadership development plus culture plus hierarchical organization with an energetic component. Like, business is an energetic entity, and we think about it from a flow perspective. And I was like, okay, yeah, someday in the future I'll do that, but I got to focus on this journal right now. And then I had a conversation where someone was like, wait, what's this consulting thing you do? You do this? You don't do it? Can you do it? Can you make it? Like, I went 5 steps in like the span of one conversation.
Yeah.
We don't know what is possible.
Yeah. And that inner work is literally us opening the gateway for that awareness of possibilities and that opportunities and possibilities, and just more of that leap experience with doorways opening on the way that feel light or don't, but yeah, that's opening the aperture of possibilities into our lives to do that inner work, especially at a time like this when the energy is so potent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's becoming, the outcome of this so far has been just a deepening of trust. Like, it's a thing that I actively practice, and maybe a little bit more acceptance of uncertainty. So many of the things we do in life is to reduce uncertainty, but those things aren't working anymore. So now it's like, well, can I just accept that uncertainty is here because it is? And how much can I accept that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm afraid. What am I going to do next month? Well, it's not next month right now, is it? It's right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's not right now. Next month, is it?
Yeah.
I like the energy of that.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. So this was a kind of heavier episode, but I think it's important because this is what's happening. Like, it's important not to sugarcoat it. There's a lot of depth to this and transformation, and even hopefully you've gained some resonance with what we were talking about. And at the same time, like, your journey is your own, and you're going to go through what you go through, and you get to trust that it's going to ultimately serve you.
Yeah. And if it felt like a heavy episode, please pull my enthusiasm for this shift. I feel thrilled and excited about what's possible now. And that is also a place we can stand on the precipice of all that's coming.
Right. Absolutely. And just aware that some people are feeling the heaviness, some people are feeling the excitement. If this is, of someone like that, please share this episode with them. It's important that we bring this stuff to light. Like, one of the main things that I experience all the time is my shadows. And one of the ways the shadows get dissipated is bringing them to awareness, and even expressing them. So finding people who are talking vulnerably about this, I find, is like incredibly, incredibly soothing.
Totally.
We don't have to go through this alone. That's
Yeah.
the real advantage of what's happening right now,
Yeah.
is we
And
get
if
to do it
you are
together.
around people who really can't get down with this kind of conversation, go looking for some more people.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're happy to be some of
exactly.
those people for you too. Awesome. Cool.
Awesome.
Well,
We are on the path. So yeah, if you like this episode, please rate and review it. It always helps to increase our visibility and get the message out there. You can always message us also at revealthegameoflife@gmail.com. What else do I say, Molly?
that sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah,
You can find
awesome.
us on Instagram too, Reveal the Game of Life.
Yeah, that's right. Instagram. Check out my writings, Chris_Tomaso on Twitter.
Yeah, go follow Chris on Twitter, stat.
Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
like shouting into the void.
Yeah. It's not a void. Well, it is a void. But yeah.
To the
Thanks for
beautiful
listening to this
void.
episode. Use what works for you, leave the rest.
Yeah,
And we'll catch you again next week or sometime. We're not going
yeah.
every week these days, but we'll be back soon for another episode of Reveal the Game of Life.
See you later.
Bye.